Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Danger Knock podcast. I'm your host, AcroNM, and today we're going to be talking about Spider Man Brand New Day, the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically the X Men, actually, and the new casting announcements that were just made, and the new look at Avengers Doomsday. But before we get into that, since this is a comic book episode, I figured this would be a good of a time as ever to kind of plug something. So one of my favorite content creators, his name is Shane Faison. He makes martial arts instructional videos, and I've been following him for like many years, probably going on a decade now. And recently, he kind of made an announcement that he was going off of social media since uh, it's a very addicting format for consuming media and stuff like that, and just generally not good for people's mental health. It'll be hard for me to quit social media, but he was able to. But in light of that, he was still able to launch his own comic book called Old Head, to which I was a Kickstarter contributor for. And to not give too much of the plot away, I will just read off of what they have on the Kickstarter, because that's what they're comfortable in giving away with the story prior to people reading it. But the synopsis on Kickstarter is: when a boy gets murdered, a group of friends fight back against the thugs in their town, only to get caught up in a big tech conspiracy. And Shane Vazen is like pretty vocal against AI, as am I, and that's why he has like these anti-AI bookmarks. And it's also a part of the story itself and how these kids go up against this big tech organization. um, I think it's really cool. I love the artwork, and if you want to check it out, I'll put a link down below for you to go either support the Kickstarter, or that may be already complete, or just order the book through their website. And you can get it in a physical print or a digital copy. So make sure to check it out. Thanks. All right, let's talk about it, man. First off, absolute cinema banger. Um, I wish I got to this sooner, but my I also like giving some breathing room before I review movies, partly because I'm lazy and I don't get to it fast enough. And also, it's like if no one has gotten a chance to actually watch the movie yet, then my podcast episode is almost irrelevant to them since they shouldn't be watching it, since it's going to be full of spoilers, which kind of nukes my viewership since all of my viewers are like mostly my friends at this point. Um, so I was actually going to make this a combination um, with the Odyssey prior to have seeing either of them, because I knew they were releasing close to each other. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Call the episode Brand New Odyssey and review both movies. And I watched the Odyssey, thought it was phenomenal. Christopher Nolan, of course, can't miss. I liked his take on the movie, or on the story of the Odyssey. And it seemed, I was surprised a lot of people have not read it in school. And I thought that was like one of the few compelling pieces of literature that I remember from high school. And I liked his changes in the movie, like that he makes it kind of Odysseus feels regret for the Trojan horse, which from what I remember, he doesn't feel that way necessarily in the Odyssey. It's more of a, in the Odyssey, he's facing his hubris of defying the gods with his like intellect and cunning and wit. Whereas the movie has that as well, but also gets into his kind of, it's almost like Oppenheimer in a sense, where his ingenuity and kind of intellect leads to a desecration of society in a way. In Oppenheimer, it's his creation, obviously, of the, was it the atom bomb or the nuclear bomb? Or is that the same thing? Bro, I'm an idiot. Either way, the bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima. and realizing that the ripple effect will cause immeasurable damage in the future just by the threat of nuclear war and nuclear holocaust. And then in the Odyssey, him breaking Zeus's law and breaking the law of like hospitality and um, kindness to strangers by by making a gift into a weapon, leading to kind of society crumbling beyond that since they're like rules don't matter anymore. I thought that was like a nice parallel between those two movies. Um, and apart from that, it was pretty interesting to see him uh, create a story that has a lot of like mythological aspects to it. I think the most kind of Christopher Nolan-ish aspect of this movie is that obviously there's not a crazy amount of CGI. It's very minimal. And it's interesting to see that in a movie that's based off of mythology where there's a lot of weird things happening, like the Cyclops and different other monsters. But the fact that he was able to do a lot of that practically and used CGI as like touch ups for things was pretty awesome, especially like with the Cyclops, like I said. And this, I think the only time I remember it was heavily used, I guess, was with the Scylla monster that grabs them off of the boat. But yeah, I mean, I honestly, there's a lot to say about that movie, and but as I was expecting to do a whole like spiel on it, but then I saw Spider-Man, I was like, "Yo, fuck that, we gotta lock in." So all in all, 2 thumbs up for me for the Odyssey. Great movie. Check it out if you haven't. I don't think I said anything too spoilery in my review just now, but yeah, definitely worth the watch. Matt Damon killed it. All the cast killed it. It was like an all-star game of freaking actors, honestly. But yeah, back to Spider-Man. So I actually recorded some of this yesterday, but I've been like so out of whack because I've been working towards something exciting and scary. Um, but I, yeah, I'll talk about that on the next episode, most likely. But my time has been occupied and I'm drained, both mentally and physically, trying to work on this kind of endeavor that I'm on. Um, but yeah, so this time I decided to come correct and actually take some notes. So let's start with I thought it would be easier to kind of go about this on like uh a character by character basis so that way I cover a majority of the plot through my opinions on the characters themselves. And obviously the biggest one being Spider-Man, which what I'm very happy about in this movie is that he was in the suit for a majority of the film. A lot of these superhero films, they're not donning the suit until like critical sequences toward the end or periodically throughout the movie, or they don't necessarily mask up at all as like an origin story kind of thing, and then it's like an end situation. But in this movie, he's like doing his investigations and everything mostly with the suit on and walking around the city and talking and interacting with other characters as Spider-Man and not necessarily as Peter Parker. I'd almost say it's like 80% Spider-Man versus Peter Parker um, outside of the suit. So I really enjoyed that. It felt like I'm actually reading a comic book because a lot of comic books is that the the characters as heroes are interacting with other heroes and such, not necessarily as their secret aliases. So I think that is a benefit to which the mind wipe that happened in No Way Home, which at first I didn't understand, and it's still like it sucks that he has like doesn't have a squad, but this movie is essentially building his squad back up. So I'm happy about that. Um, and it also allows him to, since the first three movies were like essentially an origin story for Tom Holland's Spider Man, he was heavily dependent on other characters for his development as a hero, like be it Iron Man or I think it's just like mostly Iron Man, because even his villains in the first two movies at least were basically villains who had beef with Iron Man, and Spider Man got caught in the middle of it, like with Vulture and with Mysterio. And then No Way Home was kind of just bringing in all of the other villains that were not his, like Toby's villains and Andrew Garfield's villains. So this is the first time, like, I feel like he was operating on his own, and the story is going through him mostly and what he's going through. He's developing the plot through his own actions, and I thought that was a very good. It was very refreshing to see in his Spider-Man movies because I loved the other ones too, but this one felt like a real Spider-Man movie. And all credit goes to Destin Daniel Cretton, the director of this Spider-Man. Visually, the most stunning Spider-Man of all time, 100%. Like, not even. I like Sam Raimi's like direction and like his choice of shots, but this movie just had like so much depth and color, and the cinematography was just fantastic. Um, Superb on that part for sure. And I also like how there was a lot of homage to the comics in this one. A lot of times when people make comic book movies, and especially as Destin Daniel Cretton's Crest, Destin Daniel Cretton's, if I'm saying his name correctly, his foray into like Spider-Man, like he did a fantastic job with Shang-Chi. And him doing that made me feel very comfortable with him doing Spider-Man. Uh, because he's not afraid of going into the like comic booky aspects of things. And some movies, well, I don't know if it happens as much in Marvel as it does in maybe even like the DC movies where they um feel almost in a weird way ashamed that it is a comic book movie in the first place, and they try to like adjust away from the shenanigans of it all. Uh but Credit like doubles down on that, but also tells like an emotional story. And I like the little homages. People may think it's not, it's forced, but the homages to the different comic book like scenes in the movie, and like there's, it was almost made for like TikTok edits of superimposing the comic book pages over the actual scenes in the movie, like him fighting the tarantula and scorpion and stuff like that. But I'm like, hey, listen, man, it's a comic book movie. God forbid you cater to comic book fans. Like, okay, just fucking relax. Um, but yeah, I think the beginning of the movie sets that up really well of like how he's been operating since the last movie. Since we were getting a, I believe it was like a 4 or 5 year time jump. And in that time, Spider-Man's able to build up his reputation. So we're back at baseline. He's not public enemy number one like he was in No Way Home, which I'm happy about because that's annoying. The New York City is supposed to love Spider-Man. He shouldn't be going through that forever of like fighting back for his reputation. So I'm happy most of, that didn't take up a lot of the movie. They just got right into that like, yo, everybody loves Spider-Man because everybody loves Spider-Man. Listen, by the time of this recording was August 17th or something, $2 billion. Nuts. If I remember correctly, uh also beat Avengers Endgame opening weekend. So literally nuts so. Um but yeah, this felt like a more, as I said, Spider-Man movie, and then New York obviously felt like more of an aspect to his life since he now has to engage in a life on his own, which I wish they told a little bit more of that. Like, what is Peter Parker up to outside of Spider-Man? Because he's either being Spider-Man or stalking MJ and Ned on social media, which, I mean, very pertinent parts to his character. But has like a loft with all this technology. It would be nice to know how he even got some of that money to do that. In the Tobey Maguire movies, he's obviously working for the Daily Bugle. And I think Spider-Man 2, he was trying to deliver pizzas. So it would have been nice to get a glimpse of that. Like, what the hell is he up to outside of any of that? But it seems to emphasize the fact that he's just doubled down on Spider-Man being his entire life. And everything else is just kind of a fill in the blank situation, which is not the biggest of deals. And since he's operating on his own, I do like that his suit is a little bit more dialed back than previous versions, especially since his other suits were developed by Tony Stark primarily. Um, and this one felt like the first of all, best live action suit, I'd say. And that's not to disrespect the other Spider-Man right here. With I got the Andrew. Oh no, I got the Toby, the Andrew, Tom, and then the PlayStation Insomniac Spider-Man right here. And I'm just remembering this now, and I'm gonna plug it in actually randomly in the middle here. But uh I liked how they introduced or they showed some of the moves that the Insomniac Spider-Man has done in the movie, which is like the PlayStation one. And it was just cool to see, like, I felt like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme was like whistling and pointing at the screen because he did like the double web to the ground move and a bunch of other moves that were reminiscent. And they even said that they used the Insomniac Spider-Man as inspiration for a lot of those moves. And I thought that was super dope to see. So that was just a random tidbit I'm plugging in here right now. Now back to the original chronological order of the podcast. This suit kind of felt like an amalgamation of all of those suits combined. So I thought it was very like perfectly made. And I feel like they don't have to change it for the next movie. Every time you see a Spider-Man movie, it seems like they have to change the suit so often. I don't know if they changed it too much for uh Toby's between his trilogy, but Andrew Garfield had a big jump between his movies with his suit, and then Tom, of course, having a different crazy situation going on with his suit every single time. But yeah, suit phenomenal. I thought it was great. Um, Story wise for Peter Parker, obviously, like it's the running joke that the best Spider-Man stories are when Spider-Man's really going through it, and he's going through it in this movie. Like, although a lot of it's outside of the suit, the mo and he's very good at expressing emotions through the suit via his body language, his uh demeanor, his voice acting within the suit. You it's almost like he has a face over the mask. Uh and I think the only thing in this, obviously, like you could still see, since they don't use like a faceplate, I think, as much, you can still see his mouth moving underneath the mask. And obviously he has like the retractable eyes still, which helps with like emotion. But Tom Holland is a great physical actor, and it really showed in this movie. But then the scenes outside of the suit where it's just like Peter Parker, man, the best Spider-Man or the best acting I've seen from Tom Holland so far. Um, what really stands out are those scenes where, specifically with MJ, where those emotions really come out. Since, of course, that would make sense. That's his biggest emotional anchor throughout the whole movie, and he doesn't necessarily have a chance to use it because obviously they don't know who he is, so he has to keep a sort of distance. Um, but emotionally, like via his eyes and everything, he doesn't overexpress, but the subtle motions and like his eyebrows and stuff like that just show like his advancement as an actor. And sometimes less is more. You could just you try to put yourself in his head, like what is he thinking as he's hearing these things? And it's less of an MCU movie where everyone verbalizes what's going on in their head, but you could like see in their eyes uh what they're feeling, and you can kind of feel it viscerally yourself. So acting across the board, I think, was phenomenal. What else do I got? The fact that he's more a polished Spider-Man now. He's pulling off crazy shit. Um like I even go to his fight with the Hulk. It would take multiple Avengers trying to figure that out to fight the Hulk, and he was doing it on his like solo dolo. Uh I mean, he did have Punisher, but that kind of fell by the wayside really fast of the Punisher's contributions to that fight. Um but getting to that, oh, maybe I'll get to that in a second as I go through the character list, but really love the Punisher in this movie. Uh, and yeah, and I talked about him being in the mask the whole time, but I liked how the end scene gave like he earned the right to have a maskless end scene, fight scene to properly convey his emotions and um really double down on everything that he's learned and his character arc has developed into at the very end where it all culminates to him uh deciding that he could be both Peter Parker and Spider-Man and he doesn't have to make that distinguishment between the two. Which kind of uh coincides in a good like a nice way with the arguably the best Spider-Man movie in a lot of people's minds, which is Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. He had a similar Peter Parker life, Spider-Man life. How do I merge the two problem? So I think that's a good indication of understanding the character and that resonating with the fans as well. I do like the aspect of incorporating some of the man spider storyline, which for people who are not familiar with the comics is where Peter's kind of arachnid DNA takes over to the extent where he actually becomes kind of like a spider monster. In the comic books, they went full blast, like he turns into like a spider looking creature. They didn't go that far in the movie, which I think is fine. Um, and I liked how it allowed for them to introduce organic webbing, which always made more sense to me for Spider-Man to have organic webbing instead of like developing his own web shooters. And I know that it's him developing his own web shooters is an indication of his intelligence, but you can show that in other manners, which they did in this movie as well. And I like the fact that he was able to then turn into kind of a mixture now between like the Andrew Garfield and Toby Spider-Man, which they even mentioned was the inspiration for his suit was that now that Tom Holland Spider-Man has met those other Spider-Man from the different universes and he looks up to him kind of like brief older brother figures in the Spider-Man world of his that he takes inspiration and like adds those elements to his suit, which is kind of why his suit now feels like it has a similar design language to the previous Spider-Man. Um, but yeah, I think that was super dope. What else do I got for Spider-Man specifically and his role in the movie? Oh, it's funny. Speaking of the intelligence aspect of it, this is one of those moments where the intelligence of Spider-Man or Peter Parker, I should say, uh, may bite him in the ass later on because this right here is a popcorn bucket from AMC, and I actually wasn't able to go see the movie like on opening night, but my friend was Christina, who's been on the pod, and so I was like, "Yo, pick that shit up!" I'm like, get the popcorn bucket, secure the popcorn bucket. I need that. So she was able to grab it and get it for me before I was able to see it. And I got it. I'm like, oh, this is super dope. I have a Miles Morales one back there. I don't know if you can see it. Um, but when I got it, it had this thing on the back right here. And I was like, that's so interesting. I have no idea what this means upon receiving this popcorn bucket. But I knew that this clearly has some severe or very high implications in the movie and that it did. This apparently is the not apparently, this is the power inhibitor that um Peter created, and to the general audience it may not seem like that's that big of a deal, but the fact that he made a universal version for the Hulk is a big problem for uh characters in the future, specifically the X-Men, which is I think that why they thought that getting it ahead of it now, and I think this would be a good time to transition into the addition of Jean Grey into this movie, which, I mean, I'm speaking to the people who probably may not know that she's an X-Men, and therefore a mutant, which means that in the Marvel universe, that they're born with their powers and they label it like the X gene or whatever. Um, and it's so funny that like in the Marvel universe, the civilians they don't have a problem with like the Spider-Mans of the world or like the Captain Americas and stuff like that. Like if you've obtained your powers later in life, they're like, "Oh, that's chill." But if you were born with your powers, they're like, "Oh, you're a mutant freak and you guys need to be like destroyed as a whole." Which I always thought was like so funny. Like, what if Spider-Man just was born with the powers? That would just change everything about him. They don't even know if he was or wasn't. They don't even know who he is. So I always thought that was interesting, but I guess he's not in their eyes classified as a mutant. But him developing this inhibitor, which is most likely going to be used in the future as a weapon against the X-Men, is going to create an interesting dynamic between Spider-Man and the rest of the Marvel universe, which is, I'm assuming, moving into a very mutant-heavy saga after they closed down this like multiverse saga, which was very hit or miss. Um, and that kind of makes me feel a little bit more okay with their decision of not giving him a strict X or a strict Spider-Man villain and making Jean Grey, who is an X-Men hero for the most part, as the villain. Because at first I was like, damn, we could have had an opportunity for him to dive into one of his rogues gallery. And I think they had some people in place that were potential, like they could have done like Mr. Negative or something. But ultimately, it was pitched to introduce Jean Grey, which I think is good because it keeps the ball rolling and allows for them to, like I will discuss later, announce the rest of their X-Men cast. And it feels like the Marvel universe is becoming more connected again. It just seemed very disjointed as of the last few years. And I think they're reeling things back in and they've realized that they've spread themselves too thin and had a lot of like convoluted, non-attached stories, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But when they're pretending like it is attached and then they don't follow through on those like loose ends, it just makes people feel like they're just making shit up on the spot, which essentially they are. Like there's so many post-credit scenes that what purpose do they serve for the rest of the story? Like what are they trying to allude to? I mean, Blade showed up in the end of the Eternals and they just canceled that whole thing, which I'm pissed about. Like Mahershala Ali could have had an all-time banger on his hands, and they just took that away from him. So I'm pissed about that. Uh, Speaking about being pissed, like I mean, they just brought back the Hulk in the Hulk form, but like Mark Ruffalo, since he's I guess very vocal about Palestine, I don't know if that's the issue. I can't say for sure since we obviously don't know, but like he wasn't at the premieres or anything like that. And I hope that they still keep him on as the Hulk and allow him to kind of have a more defined Hulk story. I know there's like all that issues with the character being owned by Universal Studios and them sharing him, but it was kind of crazy with this movie having like Spider-Man, who's a Sony owned character, the Punisher, who came from the Netflix series, uh, what's his Jean Grey, who's an X-Men who was originally owned by Fox. Uh, and then who else? Oh, the Hulk with Universal. Um, I just thought that was so crazy that they were able to pull this off. Um, and it works, and it's nice to see these characters interact with each other, and even like Spider-Man interact with Yelena, even for those brief scenes, which were funny. Brief. Um, I thought those were fun scenes, and I love Yelena's character as the new version of Black Widow. I think she pairs and plays off of other characters really well, and obviously we're going to see more of her in like Doomsday and stuff like that. So I'm excited for that. And I like those scenes. Like it was obviously a very emotional movie, but they had a lot of obviously fun beats to the movie that become very memeable, like them in the bathhouse and Spider-Man having his toes up. it allows for people to kind of uh mass enjoy the movie and share like different aspects of it and kind of find unified enjoyment in specific parts of it that they can share, uh even if it's like strictly just meme based. um but I thought those scenes were good. Tom Holland jacked out of his mind, of course. What else? I think I like skipped my whole plan of going through each characters individually, but let's see. I mean, oh, one who I didn't get to talk about in depth yet was John Bernthal's Punisher. I mean, I love his Punisher, and I like this portrayal of him more than the immediately previous version of him and his special presentation in his Disney Plus like special movie thing or whatever. It was like an hour long. I wasn't too much of a fan of like how they portrayed him in that. I feel like he regressed a lot as a character and was just like tweaking out the whole time, which I mean is I thought he got his tweaking out shit out of the way in the Punisher show and like his Daredevil show, and he was going full like blown just like stoic Punisher or whatever. And then he started like going tweak mode again in his special presentation. But in this movie, I feel like it was a good balance. And he actually provided a lot of like comic relief. Um and following the character after so many years, it's nice to see him kind of like smile and laugh. And of course, it's Spider-Man of all characters to like bring that out of him. And him to even say like he's like one of his only friends in a long time or whatever. And then to think back about all of his interactions with Daredevil. And I'm like, of course, he wouldn't even consider Daredevil as a friend, even though he probably does deep down. But on the surface, they probably just piss each other off, which is their own fun relationship. Which, speaking of, I'm excited to see, which I'm assuming they will bring in like Daredevil to interact with Spider Man in the future. And this only means in my mind, like, you got to keep Tom Holland as Spider Man for another decade. Fuck it. Like, until he's 40, just keep it moving. Um, because there's so many things you could do with his character and his interaction with other Marvel characters. Like Spider Man's such a staple in Marvel as a whole. Like clearly you can see he's getting too bill on his own. Um, Marvel needs to understand that and lock the fuck in and not let Destin Daniel Cretton like he's trying to do like a Naruto movie after this, bro. Nah, 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 nah. Listen, I'm not an anime guy personally, so I have no stake in that. But like, you can't. Spider Man is way up here compared to a Naruto movie. Just bro, lock in. We need more Spider Man and make a Shang Chi too while you're at it. Fuck it. Um, yeah. So let me think. Yeah, John Bernthal. Like, I love his character. I love how they're they had very natural dialogue in the movie between the two of them. It felt like an older brother, younger brother like dynamic where they were like bickering. Obviously, they still have like love for each other, but uh, their dynamic was fun. Uh, it was also nice to see even him be like protective of not only obviously Peter, but like even MJ as well, because he trusts that she means a lot to Spider Man. So therefore, uh, he takes it as his own obligation to protect her, even though he ends up leaving her on her own to go help Spider Man fight the Hulk. Uh, I just overall liked his depiction in this movie more than uh, the special presentation he was in. But the special presentation was sick though. It had like dope action scenes, of course, and it's worth checking out. But yeah. And who else we got? I mean, we got Ned, his best friend Ned. They didn't develop him too much more in this movie. He still is like more of a side. He's actually more of a side character than he was even before. Uh, I do find it interesting that they shared that handshake at the end of the movie, and that he seems to have that muscle memory of that handshake with Peter. And when he says Peter's name, I don't know if in that moment he recognizes that as his best friend and he broke the spell. From what I assume, he's probably making the connection that this is this. I don't know, because MJ said Peter's name when he jumped out the window. because she had found out that that's who he was. And then Ned confirms, he's like, that's Spider Man's name. But then for him to then confirm that with a handshake is kind of interesting. And he had that like magical powers in the Doctor Strange movie. And so maybe there's like something there that allows for him to like break the spell with the power of friendship. Oh, Um, so I think, yeah, and then speaking of the power of friendship, I thought that the spell was broken with MJ through the power of love when he kissed her on the rooftop, and it kind of felt a little bit cliche, but I was like, okay, that's fine, that's pretty cool. It was a fast way to like kind of circumvent everything. But then the fact that there was a twist and it was just Jean Grey mind controlling MJ through that whole ordeal, that was crazy. Like the audience was like, "Oh shit!" Like, you could audibly hear people gasp in that moment. Um, we do need to bring in Robert Pattinson's Chris Hansen because technically Peter kissed a minor in a weird way in that movie. Like I think Jean Grey is like they said she's a teenager, but I don't know. Like that's weird for Jean Grey to do that. I feel like and like put fucking Peter in that position. That's so weird. Um, Jean Grey, listen, was on some like weird villain. Like obviously she was the villain, but weird. Like I know she was trying to find her sister, but like why is she acting like so sinister? I mean, foreshadowing. But she was like on some weird shit. Like Peter was like, "Oh, you're not a killer." I'm like, "Yo, she had that dude step out in front of a taxi and get blasted." I mean, at at best, that guy has severe injuries. Um, so I don't know. And she was trying to get MJ killed. Maybe she knew that Spider-Man was gonna save her, but like just literally dropped her off the building, which was nuts. Um yeah, so she's gonna have a lot of character development to come back from for that. But that is ultimately the crux or the gist of the X-Men is that they're like flawed people a lot of times. Um and it doesn't help that people already hate them for their powers. So then when the flawed people with powers do stuff that are not good, it doesn't help their case. So I'm assuming this will lead into the aspects of the society going against the mutants in the future. What else we got? What else we got? Uh, I did like Sadie Sink's portrayal of Jean Grey. I feel like she's a phenomenal actor. I'm using phenomenal a lot. Superb actor. I loved her in Stranger Things. Like you could tell that she has like the most emotional range in that cast. And there was like a clip of her like kind of grimacing and smiling to herself at the end of like the Things like last table reading or whatever. And everyone else is like crying and she's just like smirking because I'm assuming she was already in talks for Jean Grey at the time. And so she's like, yo, I got the bag lined up. So yeah, she was chilling. But yeah, I think it's nice that they're at like skewing younger for the X-Men so that we can follow them for a longer period of time. And especially like this is going to be the new established like majority of the characters in the Marvel universe, since the X-Men can like have their own universe in and of itself, even unrelated to Marvel. That's how many X-Men there are, or mutants, I should say, in general. Um, so they're gonna have their own probably pocket of the MCU where other characters come in and out, and interact with. But I'm assuming that's kind of what the saga is gonna be once they close the multiverse. It's gonna be like a mutant saga or something. Um, let's see. I think that's a good segue. Okay, let me just double check anything story wise I missed because when I recorded this like yesterday, I feel like I just skipped a million things. So I'm gonna take a second and think. Like what aspects of the story that I like. Um, I like the twist that of VMAX being just the vent that Jean Grey's sister was looking at before she died. It seems like a big pull from a movie that normally is like from like Marvel movies or just action movies in general, where it's like you got to get the vial of a serum before the evil person gets it. But that's what the VMAX is, and you gotta keep it in good hands or whatever. In this case, it was just like the last thing her sister saw before she died. I'm like, bro, that's so grim. And the fact that they like put that in the movie is like they're taking bigger and better swings emotionally. And hopefully other directors take note of that and apply those in their whatever kind of characters they depict. And not every movie has to be sad in that capacity, but to take it seriously and have like take swings with things and don't follow like the protocol of what they think a superhero movie should be, and just kind of the depth and the breadth of these characters in the comic books go so far and wide that you can tap into so much of that kind of stuff. The comics do get that dark and grim many a time, so there's so much to pull from, and I'm excited to hopefully see more of that in the future. Um, what else we got? Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, I touched on that. I liked seeing Savage Hulk come back again. Hopefully, we continue to see him. I'm interested to see them now bring in more of Spider-Man's like side characters, and it's kind of hard to do in a weird way, considering that um, we've seen the variants in the No Way Home. Uh, so he's fought like an Electro with the Jamie Foxx Electro. He's fought a Doctor Octopus. He's fought a Green Goblin. He's fought the Lizard in a weird way, Sandman. I mean, they could introduce it in a way where, like, obviously he encounters their variants and he's familiar with who they become. And I've also seen people say like it could be interesting that he'll encounter these villains in his rogue gallery before they become villains, and in a way to prevent them from becoming those villains, he inadvertently helps them become those villains. If you're able to follow that, like him trying to get ahead of things and change fate for some of these characters will ultimately lead them on the path to end up becoming um, those evil people or whatever. So that could be an interesting story because I'm assuming at some point they have to bring in like his version of a Norman Osborn or something, and a Harry Osborn, and it's also funny because like they've teased in the end of Sony's Venom movie that one of the drops of Venom got dropped into the MCU versus like through the whole like multiverse shenanigans. Um, and I'm interested to see how they're gonna take that because part of this movie felt like he was getting controlled by a symbiote with like his weird like anger spurts or whatever. And so I'm gonna be interested to see like how they play that if a symbiote is introduced, that they don't feel like it's like you're reheating the same you're reheating the nachos or you're retreading the similar trope that you did in this movie. Um all right, it's sippy time. But yeah, I think this Tom Holland Spider-Man is like primed for like a symbiote story. And I think they'll do it very well. And if Destin Daniel Cretton is still involved, it'd be super dope to see. I want to see like even not even just the villains, other characters. Like I'm assuming since they didn't fully bring back MJ as his romantic love interest, or that they're back together, I should say, it leaves room for like a Black Cat to come in and for him to uh, interact with her. And the fact that Black Cat doesn't even necessarily know or care about who Spider Man's secret identity is, she just loves Spider Man. It's not like that she loves Peter Parker; she loves Spider Man. So now that he's in this phase of just being strictly Spider-Man and no one else knowing who he is, that's like the perfect time to introduce that because he has to then decide because he'll enjoy it in that Spider-Man sense, but is he willing to bring his Peter Parker life into that with a Black Cat, to which she may not even be interested in that capacity or whatever. Um, so I think that's 100% in the pipeline for them if they're going to continue on with. I mean, they are going to continue on with the Tom Holland. Like he's their new like cash cow. Before it was like Iron Man. Like you gotta lock in on this. Um, but yeah, I think that covers it. What else? Um, oh, I love Tremel Tillman in the movie. It's kind of funny because I found out about him via Severance, which is one of my favorite shows right now. Um, the only issue is that he plays like a kind of like a shady character in Severance. So to see him in this movie, he kind of gives off like you just gotta get that vibe off of him. And he didn't help um his case when he's like hiring like the Hand, which is like an evil ninja organization to be the damage control bodyguards. It's like, all right, we're a little on the nose here, buddy. Um, but that damage control, it's an interesting like they're gonna play a part in the future for sure, and they're probably gonna steal this tech from Spider-Man and probably get the ball rolling on that like war on the X-Men type situation and stuff like that. Let's see. Um, I do like the final fight scene. I thought it was very cool. I thought it was very emotional. I did kind of feel like him getting it or him having Jean Grey in his mind with Aunt May, although very emotional and very like um powerful scene and very pivotal or on how people perceive Spider-Man and how Spider-Man's goodness affects others and how other characters in the Marvel universe look up to him like in terms of morality and stuff like that. But it did kind of feel very similar to the Thunderbolts like ending on how they defeated Sentry like through the power of friendship in his brain. It was kind of like a reverse situation where instead of going to a traumatic brain space, she went into a wholesome one. But I think let's just dial it back on the in the brain fucking solving of all these problems. Um, but still very good nonetheless. I thought it was very cute the scene with Punisher and Spider Man in the hospital bed or in the hospital. Uh, and then Punisher like putting on the mask to distract so Peter can escape. Like that's I mean, some people may think that's too goofy, but listen, after all like the traumatic and emotional parts of the movie, it was nice to just have one of those kind of scenes also thrown in and him interact with that random kid and do the little like whatever Spider-Man symbol, which people thought it could be Jean Grey who kind of was in the kid's brain, but I'm like, after everything, like she needs to relax. And she was already on that thing on that bus home, but she was doing like weird shit, like hopping into people. It's like she's violating. Like, if I was a civilian and I'm looking at this and I'm finding like these mutants are up to this kind of shit, I'd be like, yo, yeah, look into this. Um, but yeah, even before they were like attacking and stealing her sister, she was like just literally like taking over people's minds for no reason. So that was weird. Um, it was cool to see the reveal. I know a lot of people had it rumored that Sadie Sink was going to be Jean Grey, but I kind of like low key forgot about it as I was watching. And when they showed it and they showed that her name was Jean Grey, I still was like, oh shit. Which is nice to have in like movies these days when everybody's trying to like spoil and find out and get ahead of things and find out, oh, who is this character and what's gonna happen in this and try to get like leaks. I'm like, what's the point? Do you not want to enjoy the movie? Like, it's like the people who open up a book and read the last page. Like, what's the point? Like you're ruining the enjoyment for yourself. I know some people will like look at the Wikipedia synopsis of a movie before they watch the movie. I'm like, oh my God. That's nuts. It's literally asinine behavior. Um, yeah, I can never. Um, what else we got? Let's just fuck it. Let's just jump into the X-Men casting since we're on the topic of mutants. Who we got? Who we got? Okay, so they announced Kit Connors as Cyclops. I have no idea who he is, but visually, he looks like a Cyclops to me. He looks like a Scott Summers, so good with me. And just to get out of it, all the characters they drop visually, like off of like character interpretation wise, I feel like they fit the role uh f- phenomenally. Christopher Abbott, I mean, I don't know what he looks like bald. I don't know. I don't remember him from any movies particularly, but I have faith in them. Probably just a guy with a good British accent. Put him in a wheelchair, shave his head. We're all set. Samara Weaving, I do love Samara Weaving because she was in Ready or Not, which I love. I love that movie. So I have full faith that she's gonna pull off a great Emma Frost. Um, and then big one, uh, Indy Navarrete as Rogue, which was crazy. And if you haven't seen it yet, I did. She's the star of the hit summer horror film Obsession, and which is a very low budget movie. And she was in like shows before, but of course, this was like her breakout role. Uh, but now this role, like going from that to being cast as Rogue in the X-Men is like, bro, she's set. Um, I think that's going to be an amazing opportunity for her. I think she's going to do great. Some people say that she doesn't have the stature for Rogue, who's kind of like a heavy hitter for the X-Men. So they would assume like she's kind of like a Wonder Woman size, like taller and stuff like that. But I mean, with movie magic, they could do a lot with it, and she doesn't have to be physically buff because when she upset, like her power is that when she touches people with her skin, like skin on skin contact, she like drains their life force and obtains not only their powers and their life force, but also like their memories as well. And the reason why she got so powerful is I think she had an interaction with not Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, and absorbed her powers and her mind through that. And therefore, it's kind of like that weird, like a mind in the mind situation again that she had in Obsession. So maybe that's part of the reason why they thought, I mean, they had to have the casting done beyond when the Obsession movie came out. So I'm sure that played partly a role, but she's a phenomenal actress and I think she's going to kill it in that role. Um, yeah, that was super dope to see. And they know that the X-Men is going to be like the X-Men's for the youth. So you got to like strike while the iron's hot and not be bringing like unk ass people into the squad unless they're like obviously like the professors. Which is interesting because they're gonna, of course, have to eventually cast a new Wolverine. And I want like since Wolverine's whole thing is like having like a weird love triangle between him and Jean Grey and then Scott Summers, because Scott Summers, Cyclops, and Jean Grey are a thing. And then Wolverine comes in and is like tries to fuck that whole thing up. Um, so yeah, they're gonna have to cast a new young Wolverine eventually. Maybe not like youngish. He could even be in his 30s probably. Um, because by then, like the whole cast of the X-Men in movie will be like in their 20s, like character wise. Um, let's see who else we got. Uh oh yeah, Maya Boyd as Storm. And she's a stage actor, so I'm not familiar with, I mean, I don't watch stage plays often, maybe I should, but she's a stage actor and she got cast as Storm. So this is, I think, her first feature film role, from what I understand. Uh, Visually, she gives off Storm for real. So I'm totally fine with her as Storm. But then also I saw a clip of her singing and she has like a very powerful voice. And so if you're gonna be Storm, you gotta have like a booming, powerful voice when she's like making her big like announcements before using her powers. So I think that's a good call on casting a stage actor who's 100% probably good at projecting their voice. So I think that's a good call on that. Um, and then who else do we have known? Oh. So they also announced Adam Driver as Mr. Sinister. I don't know too much about him. I know he'd be like cloning people and shit, and I know he's like an evil looking ass guy. But I think Adam Driver is obviously a great actor. So to give him this role, I feel like he's probably going to be the main villain of this upcoming movie. So they may integrate some like cloning storylines or gene mutation, obviously gene mutation storylines. So I think it's a good first villain for them. You can't bring in like an Apocalypse off rip. Like Apocalypse is like the X-Men Thanos. So I like this bringing in Mr. Sinister for that kind of first X-Men movie, which they're like going in with like a small group, but I know eventually maybe for an X-Men part 2 that they're going to do, they're going to have to cast like a Nightcrawler, my boy right there, a Gambit. I mean, those are my two favorite X-Men, so I'm looking forward for those castings the most. Then you're going to have to cast like an Iceman and Angel and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm excited. X-Men is even by themselves, like I said, have such a deep and rich lore that you could get lost in that world as a microcosm of the Marvel universe as a whole. So that's very exciting to see. And then, yeah, they're gonna have to get that started, and I think that's a good segue into the new look that they gave to it for Avengers Doomsday. Because in that trailer, which I'm kind of like, I need to stop watching these trailers because they're giving away too much. But they show like Doctor Doom like raising up these giant robots in the background, and those are, from what I can see, are Sentinels, which are developed to literally hunt down X-Men and I think eventually hunt down powered individuals as a whole. And so he's like raising up Sentinels on his own. So there's obviously that X-Men role that's going to play, and they're going to bring in the old Fox X-Men, and they're probably all going to get cracked in that movie and just die. Um, but yeah, I mean, I have my podcast like a year or two ago about them announcing Robert Downey as Doom, and how I feel like they're trying to just nostalgia bait. And I feel like with more information, it's becoming even more like that with the more characters they're announcing that are going to be in it. But it's not only that, it's also aura farming. Like, that's essentially what this trailer is, because we don't know Doom's motivation necessarily. We don't know what this much of anything of what's going on, of why this is all coming together between the universes. But this is ultimately them going to try to wrap up everything in this multiverse saga by leading Doomsday into Secret Wars, which in the comic book, Secret Wars is like when the universes start colliding and intermixing with each other, and people get sent off to this thing called Battle World and start fighting each other. I don't know. It's like a big thing. I haven't even read Secret Wars, so I need to dive in on that. Um, but this is, I think, their way of wrapping this shit up with this multiverse thing, which is a very polarizing portion of the MCU saga. And then after that is when they're gonna just dive into the X-Men stuff. So that's when they're probably gonna lock in. It's gonna be like a soft reboot for the MCU and allow for them to kind of readjust things along the way. Maybe introduce different versions of old characters that we know and keep some of those characters going. Like, obviously we're going to see more of Spider-Man, so he's not going to get recast necessarily beyond Secret Wars. But who knows, we might get like a brand new Iron Man or something. So yeah, I mean, that's exciting in and of itself. I don't know how well the movie's going to do, if it's just going to be a hodgepodge of just like characters aura farming, or if it's going to actually be a good story. But I mean, that clip of Gambit fighting Shang-Chi was cool enough. So I already got my tickets. I'll be seated. Um, what else we got? I think that's it. Like, Marvel's like running on all cylinders right now, and DCU kind of had Supergirl flop, which I kind of owe that partly to Mina. Like, I contributed to the flop since I didn't see it. I will probably like rent it just to get eyes on it and see if it's actually good. I heard people said it was like not as bad as people have claimed, and it was actually pretty good, but I don't think it was the right strategic choice for the DC universe to like bring in Supergirl immediately after Superman. Like, it didn't give people enough kind of differentiation to get out of their house to go see it. So it was a kind of tough, harsh decision to do that. And then them announcing like a Jimmy Olsen show, which, like, who cares about that? But I did see the first episode of Lanterns earlier today, and Lanterns looks good. I was very skeptical because I was about to call it like the Brown Lanterns, because everything looked brown and like not green. But it looks like it's going to be a good story, and it's going to lead into something pretty big. I just wish Hal Jordan wasn't so like old in the, like, I wish we could, like, similar to how Marvel's doing with X-Men, that we could grow with characters like that forever. But yeah, like, Hal Jordan looks like he's cooked as a character. We'll have to see since it's a weekly episodic drop for the Lanterns, but yeah, I hope they keep him around because I like him as Hal, and I like Aaron Pierre as John Stewart, and yeah, we'll see where that goes. Like the DC universe needs to see everything that's going on with Marvel and just lock the fuck in and go hard. They got Man of Tomorrow set for next year, and I think Clayface, yeah, Clayface coming out this year, which I don't know how much of a banger that's going to be, but it looks good from the trailer. But box office wise, who knows? Um, but yeah, I think that covers everything that I wanted to cover, and I'm going to think about something immediately after I stop recording. But I mean, it's my podcast; I can bring it up whenever I want. But yeah, I'm excited for my next podcast episode. I think that's going to be a good one. Uh, yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Once again, if you are interested, go download Old Head and or order it, the physical copy online. And yeah, thank you so much. Peace. Oh wait, I almost forgot. I gotta show off the drip. I got the Spider-Man bucket on with the little Spider-Mans and the Venoms on them. I'll probably zoom in on that. I got Spider-Man patch, Spider-Man little what's it called? Pin. They actually gave me two at the theater. Um, and then yeah. I got my let's see. I got this Spider-Man. Oh, my head is only. Got the Spider-Man ice cream shorts. Look at this. Bro, this is drip right here, dog. We're locked in. Hold on, this could be the thumbnail. This is like my post-credit scene. Ooh. Hold on.